It Ends is the debut feature film from director Alexander Ullom. I had the absolute pleasure of seeing this film a couple of weeks before its wide theatrical release, where Ullom did a post-show Q&A moderated by Kane Parsons, the director of Backrooms. I'll talk some more about some of the interesting stuff said in the Q&A later in this video. It Ends follows a group of 4 friends on the road, all cramped inside a single vehicle, and a single turn puts them onto a road that appears to be never ending. They're trapped, and without any information to go off of, they need to figure out where they are, how they got there, and how to get out. This film was stuck without having a distributor for a while, despite premiering with great reviews at festivals, but it eventually found its way onto the Letterboxd video store earlier this year, being, I believe, the first film to ever be featured there. But Neon did end up picking the film up for theatrical distribution, and thankfully it is getting a proper release. I do want to give a minor spoiler warning before I get into this. This film has a very vague premise, and so it's a bit difficult to talk about without spoiling some stuff, but I won't be talking about anything beyond the first act. It Ends has been marketed as a horror movie, but it's not at all a conventional one, and I think it may even be a mistake to refer to it as such. I think that, unfortunately, some people are going to walk away from this a bit disappointed because it's not what they expected. To use the director's own words, it's a bit like if Richard Linklater directed a horror film. It's very dialogue heavy and character focused, and it takes place all in a single location, the car and the road that they drive on. The actual horror elements are pretty few and far between. We come to discover there's a group of almost zombie-like people hiding in the woods around them that start chasing them when they stop the car for too long. But besides a few sequences, they actually aren't all that prominent. They're quickly established as a significant threat, but after that's already done, they come to serve more of an ever-looming presence of implied danger than an actually visible one. This adds stakes and creates a reason for these characters to keep going forward, but it's also not the main focus of the film, nor is it even the main source of horror. As I said, this film is very dialogue-heavy and character-focused. It's much more concerned with how being on this endless road actually affects its cast of characters. It's filled with existential dread. Again, these characters have no idea where they are or if they're even alive. This is the main source of horror, and that becomes increasingly clear as the film goes on. It Ends also has a very liminal feel to it. Their car is the only one on the road in an area that's completely isolated from the outside world. This was discussed in the Q&A, and it was quite interesting considering Kane Parsons' work with the Backrooms, which have become synonymous with the word liminality, at least for people around my age and younger. Both films present different kinds of liminality, something that Parsons explicitly said. The Backrooms are unnatural and manufactured. They might resemble things like an office space, but that's not what they actually are. It Ends uses a more natural form of liminality, the kind that you could very easily see for yourself if you ever happen to be the only person on an isolated road. This film also deals heavily with themes of loneliness. These characters are totally alone, with no contact to anyone else at all. Much of the post-show Q&A discussed this, and it became clear that this film came as a result of Ullom's own experiences with isolation and loneliness. He graduated film school right around when COVID hit, which was of course a very isolating time for everyone. I believe he even said that it was at this time when he first started working on this film, at least in early development. Ullom also talked about how this point in his life felt like a transitional period for him, where he was finally becoming an adult, but COVID had to come and wreck that all. He also mentioned how he basically came of age with his friends working on this movie, as it did have a long production timeline. He described the process as like scrapping it together over 3 years. And so this also adds a coming of age feel to this film as well, but it's coming of age in a situation where you feel isolated and alone, and like you have no idea how you're going to keep pushing yourself forward. This film takes those internal feelings and turns them into something physical, the endless road. It's an allegory for the isolation brought on by COVID, or more generally, the feeling of coming of age when the world is going bad. Suddenly you reach adulthood, and you have no idea what you're doing. You're just stuck on this endless road, this loop of monotony, trying to find reasons to keep driving down it. And you don't know if the road is ever going to lead somewhere new, somewhere better. It's no coincidence that these characters are also graduating university, like Ullom was when COVID hit. The road asks them, is there even any point to this? Something the characters continuously grapple with, and this question can of course be applied to the real world too. Ullom also talked about feelings of isolation brought on by late-stage capitalism, specifically in the US as that is where he's from. I think the existential dread gets even more terrifying when examining it in this context. Is pushing ourselves down the endless road worth it when the world's climate is getting increasingly worse, when wealth disparity between the working class and billionaires is only getting bigger, and it's becoming harder and harder, not only for people to provide themselves with basic necessities, but also with some kind of entertainment to cope with it all. Looking at the movie from this perspective is what really allowed it to connect with me. I was in middle school when COVID hit, and while it certainly affected me, I wasn't at a stage where it felt like it put a complete stop to my life and made me question the future of the world. But I am now at a point where things like capitalism and the US, for example, and all the baggage associated with those things, create a sense of dread looming over my future and the future of the world in general. It feels like the road is actively crumbling. This film takes those anxieties and places them into such a real feeling place, even if it's obviously not, and it made for quite an emotionally affecting experience. It Ends also doesn't really explain how these characters got on the Endless Road, or anything regarding the nature of it, at least for the majority of the runtime. And I'm not gonna say if there is or isn't any kind of revelation towards the end of the film. I think that's definitely something that you should discover yourself. It also doesn't outright say it's about COVID, or late-stage capitalism, or even that it's about isolation and entering adulthood at all. It's left entirely vague. And so when you combine the lack of explanation for the real nature of the Endless Road and its thematic meaning, there's a lot of room left for people to sort of insert their own feelings into the context of the film, to take their own experiences with loneliness and project it onto the Endless Road, or maybe even to project something other than loneliness. I personally love when films leave themselves open to interpretation like this. I think it's one of the best ways to create a film that will end up feeling personal for a lot of people, and I do hope that will be the case with It Ends. This movie also features a wonderful set of performances. All of Phineas Yoon, Akira Jackson, Noah Toth, and Mitchell Cole are great, and they really have to carry a lot of this film on their shoulders. A one-location, dialogue-heavy movie would not work with poor acting no matter how good the writing is, but in this case, they actually elevate the material. There's a couple of moments where a lot is captured in just a single expression, with no dialogue necessary. You can see these characters start to change the longer they've been on this road through their acting alone. I also want to briefly highlight the surprisingly great shot composition. It finds a way to make a one-location film, and a confined one at that, never visually boring and or repetitive. I don't think the film would have been significantly worse if the cinematography was only serviceable, but the film is actually enhanced by it. It Ends is an incredibly inspirational piece of filmmaking. It was shot for something like only $90,000, an incredibly small budget when it comes to movies. It's a testament to the idea that great films can be made with very limited resources. It might be very difficult, but you can create an engaging, thought-provoking story with nothing but a car. I wouldn't call it a perfect movie, but it's also the kind of thing that deserves an endless amount of praise. For me, It Ends is a 4 out of 5. If you'd like more film reviews like this one, I would love for you to subscribe and leave a like on this video, but any amount of support is appreciated. Thanks so much for watching The Final Take, and have a good day.